Hey bookworms! Welcome to the Bookish Review. This episode, we will be reviewing The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. The summary for this book reads as follows. Greece in the Age of Heroes. Patroclus, an awkward young prince, has been exiled to the kingdom of Phthia to be raised in the shadow of King Peleus and his son Achilles. The best of all Greeks, strong, beautiful, and the child of a goddess, Achilles is everything the shamed Patroclus is not. Yet despite their differences, the boys become steadfast companions. Their bond deepens as they grow into young men and become skilled in the arts of war and medicine, much to the displeasure of Achilles' mother, Thetis, a cruel sea goddess with a hatred of mortals. When word comes that Helen of Sparta has been kidnapped, the men of Greece, bound by blood and oath, must lay siege to Troy in her name. Seduced by the promise of a glorious destiny, Achilles joins their cause, and torn between love and fear for his friend, Patroclus follows. Little did they know that the fates will test them both as never before and demand a terrible sacrifice. So, obviously, I read the book. Here are my thoughts on this piece of literature. The book started out extremely well, starting as these boys were kids. I find that following the main characters pretty much from birth to death is a solid choice, as it doesn't leave the reader hanging, wondering what they do next with their lives. It is a beautiful love story, yes, love story, between Achilles and Patroclus, and it details their travels as they grow beautifully, and then as they go to be trained by Chiron, and finally as they fight in the Trojan War. The book spans almost their entire lifetimes, though the way the book is written makes it seem like all the events happen in only a year or two. The wording is beautiful, the descriptions are vivid, and you can feel the connection between the two boys as deeply as if you were one of them. It is definitely among the better books that I've read, balancing action and tragedy and romance in a delicate web that the author describes so perfectly that it's hard not to see the story in your mind as you read. So now it is time to read y'all some excerpts from the book, some scenes that I absolutely loved. The first excerpt I have for you today is the following. Prince Achilles, son of King Peleus and the goddess Thetis, Aristos Achaeon. As if in answer, the air changed. Bright sunlight broke and poured over Achilles, went rolling down his hair and back and skin, turning him gold. He seemed suddenly larger, and his tunic, wrinkled from travel, straightened until it shone white and clean as a sail. His hair caught the light like a buoyant flame. In this excerpt, we see the true glory of Achilles, the godlike standing he is to take on in his life. Being presented to the soldiers of Greece, what seems to be a divine intervention washes over Achilles, painting him in a brilliant light. Just the sheer divinity displayed shows Achilles' value to the Greeks, to history, to Patroclus. It is a foreshadow to actions later in the book, but it is so well disguised that without it being pointed out, you might miss the event completely, which makes this one of my favorite excerpts from the book. The second excerpt that I have for you today is, The men, too, became less like dozens of different armies, and more like countrymen. These men, who had left Aulis as Crotons and Cypriots and Argives, now were simply Greeks, cast into the same pot by the otherness of the Trojans, sharing food and women and clothing and battle stories, their distinctions blurred away. Agamemnon's boast of uniting Greece was not so idle after all. Even years later, this camaraderie would remain, a fellow feeling so uncharacteristic of our fiercely warring kingdoms. For a generation, there would be no wars among those of us who had fought at Troy. I like the camaraderie that was displayed in this section. Knowing that most of Greece was constantly at war, it was nice to see the break in their fighting and see them come together as a country. The statement there at the end, stating that there wouldn't be any sort of infighting in the nations that had fought at Troy, really brings out the big picture in that these nations are united. What man is going to want to fight against someone who may have saved his life in another battle? These soldiers are going to remain peaceful between each other for, at the very least, through their children, and if things are done right, through their grandchildren. The familial feelings these men gained from being in the Trojan War for so long are nice to see, as it is a break from the descriptions of blood and war that had been seen up until this point. And it's just a nice, refreshing break. Finally, we have the following excerpt of the Song of Achilles. I developed a reputation, a standing in the camp. I was asked for, known for my quick hands and how little pain I caused. Less and less often, Podalirius took his turn in the tent. I was the one who was there when Machaon was not. I began to surprise Achilles, calling out to these men as we walked through the camp. I was always gratified at how they would raise a hand in return, point to a scar that healed over well. I chose this final quote because I liked how Patroclus and his skills were highlighted. Patroclus is very skilled in medicine and healing skills, and those are highlighted here perfectly. Most of the story has been focused on Achilles and his greatness, so it was nice to see this break and see Patroclus really get to shine, and see him shine mostly in his own way. This, to me, proved that Patroclus shouldn't be counted out just because he lives largely in Achilles' shadow. Seeing Patroclus' own skills being brought to light was refreshing and a nice break in the focus on Achilles. Plus, it shows us the softer side of the two boys. I did do a little research though, so if you've read the book and liked it, or if you're going to read the book because of this episode, then here's 3 other books that are similar, as well as a left field recommendation of my own. First off, we have Circe by Madeline Miller as well, and it is another retelling of a ages-old Greece story. Secondly, we have the Iliad by Homer, which is another depiction of the story of Achilles, but a little bit more in the traditional Greek style. Lastly, we have a cute series that is very well known for its comedy and its modern take on Greek stories, and it is the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. My left field recommendation, which is very different from all of the books previously mentioned, is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which is similar in the way that it focuses on a group of essentially children to fix a major problem, but there's more people, there's more feeling, and this is also a duology. So there is a second book called Crooked Kingdom to read after you finish it. So that was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to be on the lookout for the next episode. Ciao!